Alright, hello everyone. Trying to get this camera balanced. Probably look crazy from this angle. Oh wow. Yeah, I'm not gonna edit this out because I want to make the video as long as possible. So just bear with me. Okay. Yeah, just picked my hair. Probably look, it's not the most symmetrical. Yeah, no, that's better. Anyway, I'm gonna make a video on why I think it's actually acceptable to hate a modern population for what their ancestors have done. I haven't made a video in a while, so I'm not really used to talking on camera. I kind of lost that skill, if I even ever had this skill. But here's what I want to say. I think it is completely legitimate to hate a modern people for something their ancestors may have done. And the reason why I think that is because, well, actually, before I get to my point, I want to say this, right? Typically, people will say, you shouldn't hate people for what their ancestors did because, it was their ancestors. It wasn't these modern people who are alive today. And I would say, generally speaking, that makes sense. It makes sense. And I don't necessarily think that you should blame people, modern people, for what their ancestors did, but I do think that you can still hate them for what their ancestors have done. And I'll put it like this, right? You should be, what's the word? You should be objective enough and understanding enough to understand that, well, these people who I'm dealing with today, it wasn't them who did it, but in most cases, the cultural attitudes that led to the horrible things their ancestors did, a lot of times are still in place in these cultures, right, or whatever culture you're dealing with. And these people haven't fully, or even at all, try to repair or repudiate, their culture and try to, change it in a holistic manner to where these atrocities that may have been committed against your people, or any people for that matter, so they don't get repeated. So I would say, generally speaking, if a black person hates white people for what they did in the past, I don't think that's unjust. Um, I would say that, you know, in the same way that if the whole Israel and Palestine situation was resolved today, like right now, all Palestinians got up and left, right? All of them got up and left, and they went to, I don't know, Egypt, Jordan, one of the other surrounding Arab countries. And let's say the Israelis, they finally got their country, they got their land, they got Gaza, they got the West Bank. And let's say don't pursue the Greater Israel Project, because we know that's what they're pursuing. Then if there's no major shift in the Israeli culture to say, wow, what we did to the Palestinians was messed up, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. We need to completely overhaul our culture. We need to get rid of the attitudes that led to this. We need to get rid of the ethno supremacy that led to this. At our yeshivas, our religious schools, we need to make sure that we stop teaching that Jews are God's chosen, they're superior. We need to make sure that take all the racist legislation off the books in Israel. We need to re-educate the children, in schools that, this isn't okay. We need, anyone who's tied to these war crimes, we need to punish them. Any companies that made money off of it, maybe they pay reparations, whatever it may be. If there's no push by the broader Israeli society, even 200 years after the situation is resolved, is it really unjust for Palestinians to say, I still hate these people for what their ancestors did? Because of cultural attitudes that allowed their ancestors to do these things with impunity and not feel bad about it are still alive within these modern people. And so it's the same way that a lot of Japanese people, a lot of Chinese people, or Koreans, or maybe Filipinos or Indonesians, or there's people from Asia and Southeast Asia, they may not like Japanese people. They may not like Japanese people because the Japanese government and Japanese society as a whole denies their war crimes that they did during World War II, in the years before. Uh, they just deny. They just say it didn't happen. These are just lies to slander Japan. So would it be wrong for a Chinese person to say, you know what? Generally speaking, I don't like Chinese people. I mean, I don't like Japanese people. Maybe you don't hate all of them, but you just say, you know what? Not a fan of them. Would that really be wrong? And I hope people say, well, if they're brought up in a culture where, you know, that's normal, right? Where they're just taught, well, this didn't even happen. All these war crimes we did during World War II, these aren't real. People are just slandering us to, uh, what's the word, uh, to smear, the great nation of Japan. Well, I'll put it like this. I'll say this. I understand that, and I think you should always try to educate yourself on different people's culture, and so you can understand and almost be empathetic in a manner, and understanding that, well, that's something that's normal in their culture, so that's why they're like that, right? That's why they have those opinions. But at the end of the day, you still don't necessarily really have to. You should. There's no reason you should be obligated to give someone a pass because of their culture, right? So in Israeli society, you can look this up if you don't believe me. Israeli society is extremely, extremely racist. Extremely makes sense, but some people probably don't get how racist it is. You can find videos online of like this teachers telling students Jews are superior, we're God's chosen, and we're gonna have however many slaves when the Messiah comes. I was gonna make a point. Damn, what was my point? uh, anyway, just my point is that you don't have to just say, well, that's their culture, so you know I'm not gonna hate them, because that's normal in their society. You know, should you hate people in general? No, but that's a natural and completely normal human emotion. And for me, I don't hold any hatred to really anyone or any group, but I understand why certain people may hold hatred to a group that may have wronged their group in the past, even if they aren't currently wronging their group, because you know, a lot of times people, these cultures, these societies, don't actually take the proper and necessary steps to deconstruct the things that happened in the past. To deconstruct not the past, the things that happened in the past, but the attitudes that led to these atrocities that may have been occurred. Look at Turkey and the Armenians. A lot of Turkish people will just deny the Armenian genocide. And so if you're Armenian and you just constantly hear about Turkish people denying the Armenian genocide, or what's the thing they say? It didn't happen, but if it did, they deserved it. And you know that this is a sizable opinion in Turkish society. Why as an Armenian should you really not dislike these people? All right, I mean, yeah, you should be able to take into account, well, that's their culture and they were taught that, right? So it's not 100% their fault. But at the end of the day, everyone's their own person. They should go look. They should go do research to see these things. So I just want to know: is it truly wrong to say, because of the way your culture works? I know what y'all did in the past to my people, or just anyone. It doesn't even have to be about your people, but I know what y'all did in the past, and I know that since then y'all have not done the necessary work to make sure that this doesn't get repeated. Then is it really wrong to say I just don't like those people? You tell me.